Okay, so yesterday you tweeted, I'm going to read it. I unironically think this time may be different. And lots of likes, lots of retweets. Why is this time going to be really different?
I don't know. It's a lot of different things. Like, I think before crypto was on this 4-year cycle that would, go on, that would like coincide with Bitcoin's halvenings. But this time it feels a lot different because we actually have, a burgeoning DeFi ecosystem with apps with real use cases that provide real value to their users, and that never existed. There was only speculation on crypto before basically mid to late 2018 as DeFi was starting to get built out, and now we're seeing since ETH demand is so high, we're starting to see the cross-chain world start to take its roots and stuff like that, and the users are there, the demand is there. People are playing on BSC and all these other side chains because they've been priced out of Ethereum. But being priced out of Ethereum is kind of an amazing problem to have, because that means the token is successful, the block space is in demand, the opportunities for arbitrage and profit are out there, and that's why the gas price is so high. And with all the different developers and all the different wizards out there who are making new apps and, trying to improve capital efficiency, and they're actually doing real things. And I just think because of that and the new value that's being created, that it's going to be different this time. Like, it just will be, because there's actual real stuff going on. And it's not just a bunch of hype and vaporware.
Yeah, I feel like there was a conversation in 18 and 19 as everything kind of went into crypto winter about, well, the promises that we made, we're now building the infrastructure for. And then in 2020, DeFi summer happened, and it was like, oh, people are using it. You can use it very well. So yeah, the structure is there. Now when people promise an app, they can build an app, and it's real.
I also think that like ETH with its improved tokenomics coming with EIP 1559 and the switch to proof of stake later this year are really going to, really make a bull case for ETH as an asset. I think mass adoption is coming. Like, everyone in the world knows what crypto is now. There's no like, oh, what's this Bitcoin thing? Oh, Johnny, my son, he's so weird. He's into this cryptocurrency stuff. That stuff's not happening anymore. Everyone's kind of accepting that this stuff is real. It has value, and even if it's perplexing to some people, it's a part of the collective consciousness now.
Hey everybody, welcome to Chainlink Live. My name is Andy Boyan. I've got Scoopy Trooples here. I'm very excited. I've been a DeFi geek and following all DeFi summer since last summer, early on in spring, and you popped up in Twitter as a major DeFi user, and now recently you and a number of other co-founders have founded Alchemix, a fascinating protocol that takes advantage of permissionlessness and composability to make self-repaying loans. And we'll get into how that happens. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to this community.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and share, all about Alchemix here and answer everyone's questions.
Well, let's start with what is Alchemix? Give us a little breakdown and what's the philosophy behind it, and what are some of the mechanics? How does it work?
Okay, so this is like a line taken from one of our community contributors. His name is 0xDeFi. He's actually started working on our front end as well recently. So an awesome guy, and he described it like this. I think this is the best description. So imagine a bank, and you can deposit money, and the bank pays you, I don't know, 10 to 15% interest on the money that you deposit. And then there's a credit card attached to your account in the bank with a credit limit of 50% of the amount that you have deposited. There's no interest on the card. There's no monthly payments to make. Instead, the interest you earn on your balance pays off any debt you have automatically over time. So imagine you can put in your DAI, you can borrow another stablecoin off of it. In the meanwhile, all of your DAI that you deposited is earning yield and paying off the debt that you borrowed from the system.
So a user deposits funds and they sit there, but then they borrow against those funds up to 50% of the value and use them however you want. And while those funds are sitting there, that original deposit, what's happening to those? How are you guys earning yield on that?
Yeah, so we deposit the DAI tokens in Yearn, in the Yearn vault for DAI. And that is currently making somewhere around 15% interest a year. But then we have a way to boost the APY. I'll get into that later. It's actually pretty fascinating how this all happened, because it wasn't planned when we made it. But basically, you can, like, you'll have, let's say you put $1,000 in, you can borrow 500 at a 15% rate. That would be $150 of interest a year being repaid. So in a year, your debt would be $350. And then come another couple years later, then your debt would be completely gone, and you can withdraw all of your collateral, keeping your original $1,000 that you put in.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So there's this balancing act when you're using DeFi, or it doesn't have to be DeFi. When you deposit funds somewhere and are earning yield on that, and then you're trying to take a loan, usually you're paying more interest in taking out a loan than you are on the deposit. Like, that's how finance works. That's how a bank in the middle makes any profit. So, like, that's the magic that I want to understand here is, like, how does that work where it's not imbalanced, where you're actually able to pay off that loan and earn? Really, you can earn after that, I assume, right? Once your balance is paid off.
So while you deposit your, when you make a deposit and then you borrow AlUSD off of it, it locks your collateral during that time. So imagine, like, you have $1,000 and then you get into a car accident and it costs $500 to repair it. Okay. So you normally you would say, okay, I'm going to take from my savings account and I'll pay off the $500 that I owe to fix the car. And then I have $500 left over. With Alchemix, what you could do is, deposit your $1,000 into it, then borrow $500, and you can use that to pay your car. And meanwhile, your full collateral is paying off your debt, the whole principle of it. If you were then, if you didn't use Alchemix and you paid for it out of pocket, then you'd have $500. And then if you want to go try to make interest on that, you have a smaller base. So Alchemix ends up being more efficient to use economically than spending for things out of pocket.
So I've heard of over collateralization as like a meme for security, because if we're permissionless and anybody can come in, you want to over collateralize. We don't have KYC in a lot of these. We don't have that. But you guys have taken over collateralization as a feature and said, like, well, because it's over collateralized, then we can just earn more yield on it and do more stuff with that. Am I thinking about that right? Yeah.
It's letting you earn yield with your collateral while you can do more things with it. It's opening up optionality for how you can, save. Essentially, it's a savings technology, because normally, like, if you're going to consume something, you're going to lose, your savings in order to consume or to buy something. Now you can still save and consume simultaneously, or borrow the money to save even more. So it offers you a way to leverage your yield farming.
This reminds me, we were talking at the top about why this time is different. And I've got friends who have been in crypto for years, before 2017, and they, big Bitcoin bulls, and they're not spending their Bitcoin at all. They're depositing it and using it as collateral to pull out ETH or to pull out other stuff and to do things. So, maybe that is one of the reasons here why this time is different is, you don't have to sell your ETH. You don't have to sell your Bitcoin. You can use it as collateral, and then do some really interesting things with it. Very different mindset than in 2017 or 18, where it's like sell your profits, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 2017, 2018, you were selling a narrative and hype. That was it. It was promise of the future. There were, ICO mania and everything like that. And a lot of good came from it. A lot of these projects that built out the infrastructure, like Chainlink for one, they got started in that time, and you guys were lampooned as a meme coin, and nobody thought what you were doing was working. But the Marines and the Green Frogs knew all along. And then once you guys opened up your oracles, everyone was like, "Oh wow, Chainlink, it's the real deal." And you guys were funded during that time, during the ICO mania, and one of the few projects that actually turned out to be real.
There's nothing like a rabid community, especially when they're right. It's a fun thing to be a part of. Everyone, thank you for joining. This is Chainlink Live. I'm here with Scoopy Trooples. We're talking to him about Alchemix and how their protocol works. Just brought up Chainlink, and I wanted to ask you about synthetics on the platform. So you're using Chainlink Price Feeds to get accurate prices when you make a synthetic asset. So
Yes.
what's the purpose of the synthetic asset in Alchemix? Like, why do you need a synthetic, and kind of how does that work? Feel free to get a little bit deep. We'll come back for people who need some basic exposure as well, but we'll go deep, shallow and deep on this as well.
Okay, so this is a big question. So let's take a moment to unpack it all. So why do we use synthetics at Alchemix? So that is a question of capital efficiency. If we were more of a platform like Aave or Compound, like a lending market, we would, people would deposit DAI and then they would borrow, another stable coin, maybe DAI, maybe something else, right? And if we do that, then they're going to have to be borrowing from somebody, or that future yield that you get is going to have to come from somewhere, whether that's your own deposit or deposits from other people, that money won't be stuck in the system. It's going to leave. So if we have our own synthetic that we can mint based on the deposits that are in there, then it allows us to hold that collateral and all that locked value and earn with it while we give you a token that's pegged to the asset that you deposited. So it increases our efficiency. And if we didn't have our own synthetic, we wouldn't be able to do the self-paying loans. Or if we did do them, they would have to be at a much lower rate. And we might have different collateral, ratios that we would need to have. I'm not really entirely sure what those would be. And we would definitely need to have liquidations, in that system.
So you basically, you need to get it in a format where your smart contracts can use it in an efficient way.
And the way we use Chainlink is for AlUSD is that right now we only have DAI as a collateral type, but we plan to add more assets like USDC, USDT, SUSD, and more as assets, collateral assets for AlUSD. And if any one of those falls under their peg, let's say DAI gets to 98 cents, then it's not right for them to be able to mint a coin that's supposed to be pegged at $1 if DAI is not $1. Right. So what happens if DAI goes under 98 cents or any of the other stable coins in the future go under 98 cents, then minting of AlUSD will be disabled. So that way, like if there's a temporary fluctuation in the market and all of a sudden, like there's a flash crash on, USDC, somebody scoops it up on the cheap, then they can mint a bunch of Alchemix or AlUSD, for a lot less than they should be able to do. And like to prevent those measures, or what if like a coin completely crashes, right? Like what if the Tether FUD turns out to be real, right?
Yeah.
And Tether goes to zero, and then what if then somebody scoops up a 10 billion Tether and then mints AlUSD with that? Then like that would be a problem. So that's why we have Chainlink in there, is to ensure that the collateral assets are good.
That's awesome. I love the thinking that's going into this. It's clearly a security measure to have good data and a good price for that. We've got some good questions from our audience. I want to encourage everyone, go ahead and drop questions. We can see them. I'll bring them up for Scoopy. Let's start with one. My boy Mark said the first question, which I don't see in the list, was, will Alchemix be multi-chain? Are you looking at other chain or layer 2 options?
So we internally have been exploring some things. I know that for the Alchemix DAO that's going to be out later this year, we're going to be targeting an L2 for Ethereum, probably one of the optimistic rollup chains, targeting for that. And we're also in talks with a couple other of the side chains about expanding into those chains as well. But it's not our top priority right now. We're heads down development on the Alchemix DAO and Alchemix V2, which is going to initially deploy on the Ethereum main chain.
So if people are having gas troubles, the best advice is 6 a.m. Eastern time, USA, because that's the lowest gas that I've seen lately.
Yeah, on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. That's just somebody everybody's dealing with right now, including developers. Are gas prices hindering development right now for you guys?
Not at the moment. We actually had one DevOps kind of operation that we had that ended up costing close to 10 Ethereum because gas was so high, and that was we upgraded one of our modules. It was called the Transmuter, and we didn't have a migration function built in, but we had a way to get the funds out of that and into another contract, and that required I think it was something like 300 or 400 transactions for us to do it. And so as we migrated the funds from that contract to the other one, it literally took the team for working on multiple shifts, I think 36 hours to do it. But I can talk about that. So that's the we upgraded our module called the Transmuter. So we have three main modules in Alchemix. One is the Alchemist Vault. That's the Vault page on our website. If I can share my screen, I could probably give some visuals to make this a little bit easier to follow.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me share my screen. And share my Brave tab. Okay, so in Alchemix, we have three different modules. There's the Vault, the Alchemist Vault, the Transmuter, and the Farm. So the Vault is where you can basically turn DAI into AlUSD, and the Transmuter is where you can turn AlUSD into DAI. So if you stake your AlUSD into the Transmuter, as debt repayments happen, either through harvests from Yearn or people repaying their debts, that DAI flows into the Transmuter. And so let's say you put 100 AlUSD in here. Immediately you won't be able to transmute that to DAI, but if you wait a little while, a day or two, then you'll start, a day or two tops, but it could be sooner. You'll see this thing called this little box here, transmutable DAI, will start to increment up and go up and up and up. And that's how much of your AlUSD you can convert to DAI 1-to-1. So if you had like 100 AlUSD here, and then or 100 AlUSD staked in here, and then like transmutable DAI was 90, and then you hit the transmute button, 90 of your AlUSD would be converted to DAI, and the other 10 would still be staked in there. So it's a way to go from AlUSD to DAI.
So I think Jen had a question. Does this address this question here? Is there an option to repay the loan early yourself if you need to access your deposit? Is that this?
Yes, that's actually in the Vault here. You can repay your loan with AlUSD or DAI. The system treats the both of them the same if DAI is above 98 cents.
Cool. Thank you for the question,
and then
Jen.
you can also liquidate your collateral. Let's say that you got in here and you used your AlUSD loan, and then you got rugged on Uniswap like I did the other day. And you're like, oh crap, I need my collateral back. You can always pay your AlUSD debt using the DAI collateral that you have in this liquidate tab. So you can repay with AlUSD or DAI or both of them at the same time.
Snazzy.
And then the Transmuter is where you can convert your AlUSD into DAI. It's not a place to get yield per se, but if AlUSD is under the peg, then it's a place where you can guarantee to get a 1-to-1 conversion of AlUSD to DAI. It's a peg stability module, essentially. And so anyway, let me talk more about the Transmuter. So people were going into the Vault and they were liquidating a bunch of their collateral in order to get into the farms and things like that. I'm not sure exactly why they were doing it. And as a result, we had a ton of money in the Transmuter. Right now, there's 267 million DAI in it. And basically, what we ended up doing is when we upgraded the Transmuter, we then started using the funds in the Transmuter to do yield farming in Yearn in the DAI Vault. And then this yield that we earn from here gets passed on to the users who are staked in the Vault. And that's why our APY here is 26%, whereas Yearn right now is, I think, somewhere around like 13, 14, or 15%. It's because we're adding the principal from the Transmuter to the aggregate principal in the system and then passing on that extra yield to our users.
That's cool. That's composability in action, right? Like oh, well, you have to have the DAI in here to be able to access this. So we're going to use the DAI in another way and auto compound. Like, oh, that's just a really nice, cool
Yeah, my thinking about like using assets, like not having them just be park places, was informed by somebody I look up to in the space a lot, Dan Elitzer. He's the I think like top VC over at Nascent. And he wrote a piece in, I think, 2018 that was like called Super Fluid Collateral and DeFi. It might have been early 2019. And this is him talking about, like, before any of this had happened, like using Uniswap tokens as collateral in MakerDAO, and, you know, having assets that are deposited in one thing then be put into another protocol to earn yield over there. Well, it's like, and, you know, all these ideas came from this article he wrote before any of these things existed. You know, and I think that's like, I still reference that document, you know, that article when, you know, I'm thinking about how to build things in Ethereum and DeFi.
I mean, that's the sea change, right? That goes from the number go up token buying model to token as collateral. Like, oh, it can do something for you. It secures value in some way so that you can make whatever, you know, whatever it happens to be. This is really cool. I love this transmute system. I got a couple more questions. I'm wondering if I can have you address as well. And if anything from your screen share addresses them, feel free to bring it back. I love seeing those. I think you talked a little bit about defaults. And I'm not sure, are defaults possible here? And what happens? How do you guys deal with defaults?
What do you mean by default in particular here?
So like, you're putting in collateral for a loan. Yeah, like I can't think of a way that defaults are possible right now with Alchemix.
So basically the only way you can really lose money in Alchemix, like if, you know, like let's say you take on like an AlUSD loan, the only way you can really lose money is if you get hacked. Like if Yearn gets hacked rather, or us or Yearn gets hacked, or exploited. I don't think that would happen. Yearn V2 was, you know, audited by multiple firms and pen tested by multiple firms and everything like that. I mean, there could always be some implementation or some, you know, other bugs that happen in it. You never know. It's DeFi. But basically, if Yearn gets hacked and then their vaults suffer a loss, that loss would then be experienced by the Alchemix system, and our users would also suffer along with the you know, Yearn as well. And if we got hacked again, you know, same thing. So there's always that smart contract risk in DeFi, and that outcome would definitely lead to losses. We're going to be getting our audit back very, very shortly. We've already had several code reviews from esteemed developers in the Ethereum community, but we'll be getting that back, the audit back, and with it, we'll be getting on Nexus Mutual, so our users will be able to purchase cover for their positions. Yeah,
Sunset, I think you're asking about if somebody defaults on their loan, just decides not to pay it
no,
back.
There's no liquidations. There's none. You know, if you your collateral will pay off your loan over time, and if you fail to retrieve your collateral after your loan is paid off, you will be getting AlUSD credits the entire time, earning yield. So you don't have to worry about it. You forget about it, come back 10 years later, you'll be fine.
It's such a different model than traditional finance, where your loan needs to be monitored. But if it's auto paying itself back, then walk away. It's fine. The system will be robust without you. You know, this is part of like just understanding the terminology and how we're dealing with it differently.
We're actually going to be launching AlETH sometime later this month. I'm not sure exactly when. And that's going to allow you to deposit ETH and then borrow a synthetic ETH, AlETH. Very similar. It might have a couple different parameters than the DAI vault right now in AlUSD, but it'll basically work the same way, where you can borrow ETH with your ETH, and there's no liquidations. You don't have to worry about managing it. So if you want to, you know, right now a lot of people, what they do is they, you know, if they want to go long, they go on MakerDAO and they borrow DAI, and then they buy more ETH with that. But then, like, you know, if something happens like last year with Black Friday, you know, or Black Thursday, where we had like the meltdown with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then ETH gas is like 2,000 Gwei, and none of the liquidator or none of the oracles are, you know, that MakerDAO uses are updating, and, you know, there's these like fake, these like auctions for one DAI to buy like 100 Ethereum going on and wrecking users. Like that won't happen with us. That can't happen with us because we don't have liquidations and keepers built into our system.
You referenced bringing in ETH. I've got a question about staked ETH. You guys working on this, or is that alpha that you can't reveal yet?
So I think for the like our AlETH, when we launch it, it's going to be still using our version 1 contract. So it's going to be a limited beta with a smaller cap for AlETH, and then the full version of AlETH will be rolled out alongside the full version of AlUSD. Will be rolled out in version 2, and that'll allow for like multi-collateral tokens. So multiple stable coins backing AlUSD, multiple flavors of ETH backing AlETH. And we looked into implementing ST-ETH as an option for Alchemix, but specifically the Yearn Vault for ST-ETH Curve. But it would require a lot more engineering in order to implement it, because it would require you going from ETH and then zapping into the Yearn Vault, and that requires you to then basically execute a trade for ETH to stETH on Curve to supply liquidity, then depositing that into the Yearn Vault. And if we did that all together in one transaction, that'd probably be around 500,000 gas. It would price people out, and it would require a lot more engineering because people would experience slippage in this process. And our current V1 design is not designed to handle slippage and things like that, where V2 is designed to handle these things and have multiple vaults and multiple collateral types. So V2 will have a lot more options. But V1, I think for simplicity's sake and for implementation and its limitations that it has, then we're going to be going with the base YV WETH vault from Yearn.
Good question, Sebastian. Sounds like join the community and pay close attention to V2 when those things can come out. I also saw Bitcoin. You guys are thinking about doing a version of BTC as well?
Yeah. So we wanted to get the main crypto, currencies. So those are stable coins, Bitcoin and ETH, as our, the main flagship coins that we want to establish markets for with the Alchemix system. If we can determine that we can make room for more coins in the future, we could, especially if that link vault, APY stays high, that could be a candidate right there. I know that I've been bugged by a lot of link Marines about Al Link. It's definitely, all their tokens other than like, stablecoins, ETH and BTC, could be considered, but for now, the major cryptos unit of values are going to be our focus.
Cool. Thank you for the great questions, audience. Scoopy, I've got a couple more for you that are just me, and this is me being curious about innovation. Where do these ideas come from? Are self-paying loans, is this an idea in traditional finance that we're like retail people like me are just not aware of? Or is this a brand new idea that's turned on its head, or where does this stuff come from?
So I was approached by my friend who's actually the CTO of Alchemix. He told me back in like June he has an idea for this app and he needs a front end developer, and that's why I joined with him. And then him and I worked on the design a lot, changed it. Then we got some more developers on our team, and we iterated on it further and further until we got to the current system that Alchemix is. But the base idea was still the same: is to deposit some funds, get some other token up front, and then meanwhile your tokens are earning yield, and that drives the economics of it. And the idea with this was born out of a lot of the early 2018 DApps. At the time, there was no real DeFi, and a lot of the DApps at the time were like these kind of like money games. Mm-hmm. Some would say Ponzi's or pyramids or zero, but at the end of the day, they are zero-sum games where for every winner there's a loser, right? And something about that, it was fun to play in those games and participate in them and stuff like that, but it doesn't sit well with you because like For me to make money, I have to scam someone else. And I guess all markets are like that in a sense, but like, especially with some of these Ponzi apps, it was a lot more up and in your face. And so that, you know, people with the conscience, it doesn't sit well with us. So we were thinking like, how could we, you know, take advantage of crypto and programmable money in a way that people won't get wrecked? Because we're also looking at all the people who got liquidated at MakerDAO and all the people who always get liquidated on leverage exchanges, you know, people who get rugged and, you know, all these other things, you know, or get scammed in a Ponzi. And we're just thinking like, how could we change it so we can find or make an app that, you know, at worst leads to a neutral outcome, but will likely result in a positive outcome. And with that motivation, our CTO, Dr. Derivative, he came up with the idea for Alchemix.
You know, I feel like Yearn really changed the game last summer, and Yam, of course, and Uni, you know, just the idea of, or Curve as well, really like put into play, like you can make real yield off this. And if you can make real yield off this and it's not a Ponzi, it's secure, then what else can we build on it? And we see stuff like what you guys have built, which is just, you know, it takes one element of the traditional finance system and just flips it and says, well, what if the loans just pay themselves? It's a weird idea that 5 years ago would have been complete nonsense. Yeah, and now it's real. Like, it's crazy.
I think the closest analog in the traditional finance world is if like you have an investment property with like tenants in it paying you rent, and then you take a home equity line of credit, you know, and then, you know, your tenants are going to be paying off your debts from that. But at the same time, if you want to get out of your position, you got to kick your tenants out. You got to sell your house. And, you know, it's a lot more work, and you have to maintain a house. Like, you can't just like buy it and forget it. And if you do, then you're going to have to pay a management company a lot of money in order to manage it for you. So with us, it's, you know, and the housing market, you know, could crash like it did back in 2018. So the collateral is good, but it's not like great. It's not perfect. Whereas, you know, with us, we have mirror assets. So the collateral is denominated the same thing as the loan. So it doesn't matter if ETH is in a bear or bull market, you know, AlETH, your debt will be denominated in the asset that it's in. So it's fine.
This has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming to talk to us and our audience. If there are more questions, where can our audience go or find out more about Alchemix? I know you guys have a Discord. Is that the best place to go?
For information, being close to source, Discord is the best. Devs in there, myself included, post regularly and interact with the community regularly. We have an awesome support staff and awesome community that can answer any of your questions if we're not there. If we usually, any announcements we make in Discord, we also echo on Twitter as well. Our Twitter is Alchemix5, so at Alchemix5 on Twitter. And that has a link to our Discord in there as well. So you can go to our Twitter, get to our Discord, or you can go to alchemix.fi is our website, and all those links are there too.
Great. Mark's dropping those in the chat right now. I'll make sure to have them in the YouTube description as well. Scoopy Trooples is also on Twitter, as am I. You guys can follow him there and get all sorts of updates and hot takes on DeFi and Ethereum and everything interesting in crypto right now. I really appreciate your feed as well. It's entertaining and educational. So, hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out and just talking DeFi with me and walking us through some of Alchemix. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you for having me on. This is a great interview. I was happy to answer all these questions. So, you know, if anybody wants to reach out to me, find me on Discord, you know, or interact with me on Twitter. I'll be, you know, if I have some spare time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Again, my name is Andy Boyan. This has been Chainlink Live. Join the Alchemix Discord. Join the Chainlink Discord and Telegrams. Come and get involved with these projects. That's how to get started, is you have these conversations and chats with a friend and a non-friend you met on the internet, and suddenly you're building hundreds of millions of dollars worth of protocol. Anybody can do it. And I want to encourage our audience and our viewers to get involved in those ways. Also, like and subscribe the Chainlink Live YouTube channel. We do more Q&As like this. We've got some more next week with a variety of projects, and there are many more coming down the pipes. Again, my name is Andy Boyan. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you next time on Chainlink Live.